Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market, let's talk about what is happening to Tesla, what we can expect moving forward into next week, which could be a little bit more on the rocky side. We have things like CPI coming out tomorrow, and we have, of course, VIX ending the week well above 20. So things could still be a little bit rocky, at the very least at the beginning of the week. But regardless, I'll give you my thoughts moving forward into next week and what I think can happen next, as we had yet another very spicy day today. Tesla was down quite a bit, actually, in the lowest point of the day. I think the lowest point of the day, we were down another 5% almost at the lowest point of the day. But, of course, we ended the day pretty much flat, which honestly, with all things being said and done, not that bad, right? Not that bad. But yeah, if you enjoy my videos, don't forget to hit that like button. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. And again, if you do enjoy my technical analysis, thoughts on the charts, etc., I do share my thoughts with my members every single day, mainly on Tesla stocks, sometimes other stocks as well, for just $3 a month. And I even today I shared two posts that I with Tesla and Nvidia here. After waiting this is 4 hours ago, after waiting very patiently from 140 when everyone told me we were going to 160, I have begun a position here at 108 and we'll add down to 105 on Nvidia. So that's obviously up right now. And then I did the same thing on Tesla, added more Tesla here at 253. This is the lowest I thought it would go, but keep in mind, these are longer term swings that I'm adding. Well, I am adding smaller than usual because, you know, in this kind of market, I'm definitely a little bit more on the defensive side, but couldn't help pass up that opportunity. So yeah, the link is down below, $3 a month or $5 a month. You get access to the first tier, which is mainly Tesla stock plus Nvidia. But jumping into it, Tesla, like I said, down 0.3%, which all things considered, could have been worse, right? The good news is the fact that very quickly about the market, SPY with a pretty nice looking bullish engulfing candle on SPY. So, you know, that's potentially some good news moving into next week. QQQ actually held exactly what it needs to, arguably printing a nice hammer looking candle as well on QQQ. So the markets, they're showing signs of a bottom, right? Again, I don't want to be, you know, like that typical guy that tries to call bottoms here. This is a bottom, that's a bottom, this is a bottom, that's, you know, this has good potential. Let's just say that it has good potential. We had a false breakdown. I actually got stopped out on this. I'm pretty sad, but we had a false breakdown this morning as well. Very aggressive selling, and then ended up recovering pretty much all that and then some on the market, which is always a good sign as well. But again, the fact that we had a false breakdown between two potentially pretty important pivot points, if you will, or three actually, you can argue, right? We had this really long green trend line over here that's been obviously tapping us back up several times. You can see, right, started here, did it here, and now we're back to here, right? Obviously, also on QQQ, you know, this kind of megaphone pattern I was talking about on SPY yesterday, right? Where it's a bullish megaphone pattern, you go like this, holding the bottom. Obviously we had a false breakdown, so we arguably had two false breakdowns there, and then we also have this pivot point back here, which we also had a false breakdown. So we had three essentially false breakdowns on three different crucial levels that it recovered and arguably ended with a hammer candle. That's not a bad sign. I'm not gonna lie, if I was a bear, I would probably be exiting my positions seeing this kind of thing. But I mean, you know, what do I know, right? I mean, maybe I'm wrong. And the one thing that is, you know, definitely still, you know, I wouldn't jump up and down for joy just yet from a bullish perspective, only because the VIX is still at 23, right? We closed the week at 23. That is a little bit on the more concerning side. So this comes back all to Tesla because, well, this obviously can affect Tesla for better or for worse with the markets looking like that. So specifically looking at Tesla, let's look at the 1 hour first, right? The 1 hour still has some work to do, right? We still have all the EMAs cross bearish, etc. But we are in this kind of, you know, descending channel, you know, that we're kind of, you know, zigzagging down more or less like this, right? You can also even argue the fact that maybe it looks something like this. Hard to say for sure, but the point is the fact that what really matters when you're descending or in a channel or a wedge, whatever, the top line is what really matters, and when you're rising, the bottom line is what really matters. In this case, the top line matters, and we're pretty much flirting with a breakout here. So let's see how it opens up on Monday. A gap up on Monday will be ideal, and on top of that, if you go to the 15. What did I just do? Let me remove that. If you go to the 15-minute chart on Tesla stock, we are potentially printing us, again, it's a small but potentially important bullish head and shoulder pattern. Right, looking like this, which needs to essentially break above about 265, we'll say, right? And if you get candle closures above 265, that's where things can get a lot more interesting. Now, one way, and you know, to avoid potentially this kind of whipsaw action that we experienced today, right, or at the very least avoid the selling pressure that we experienced here, was, and I was sharing this with my members in the morning, is you could do something called, I think people call it the orb, I think, or something like that, where essentially what you do is you take the pre-market low, you take the pre-market high, which was this here, you take the pre-market high, which was around here, and you go to the 15-minute chart, and the first 15-minute candle closure above one of these two, above or below the pre-market low or high, usually signals momentum in that direction for probably the majority of the day, or at the very least the first half of the day. That's kind of what happened. We ended up whipsawing actually back and forth between the two levels you can see here without closing above or below in the 15-minute candle, either one. Then we finally flushed, and then we ended up flushing down pretty aggressively once we actually confirmed that direction. But then the market, with a nice little bear trap, recovered the majority of it. But the point is, you know, these are pretty important levels. And you'll notice that throughout the day, Apple was the only thing that was red or green for the majority of the day until everything came back. And that's because Apple broke its pre-market high, and look at that, it's pretty much been bullish the whole day. Anyways, that's just one way to look at things. Now, going back to Tesla stock, yeah, what else is there to talk about, right? So obviously we talked about the 1 hour, we talked about 15, we know what to look out for there on, you know, potentially as early as Monday. So let's see how that actually plays out, right? There is potential here, but we need some more follow through from the bulls, no doubt in my mind whatsoever. The daily chart also potentially, I don't know if I'll call this a bullish, a hammer candle. The wick at the top is too long, to be completely honest. And the one thing I'm not a fan of is the fact that we did close below yesterday's low. We couldn't close green. You know, that does show a little bit of more weakness than I wanted to see. So the bulls definitely still have some work to do, right? They're not out of the woods just yet, as we are still pretty much flirting with the bottom of this channel, which has been invalidated here and there many times over. So it's hard to say how accurate the bottom channel is. But like I said, in a downtrend, this is what really, really matters. Like the top line is what really matters. For Tesla to really do something meaningful, breaking out and going like this is, you know, pretty much what needs to happen, right? The bottom trend line is usually less important. It's more of a guideline. The top one is a little bit more important. Anyways, so that's that. So Tesla has some work to do. We're still well below the 9 or the 8 EMA, or the 8 EMA is currently sitting at 281. We're well below that, right? You know, stocks don't usually stay below the 8 EMA that long. Like I wouldn't be surprised to see a pop up to that, at least the 8 EMA, potentially as early as Monday, but then that's when the volatility can start kicking in once again. So be mindful of that. We're still setting up bullish divergences across the board, whereas we're essentially continuing to make lower lows nonstop, but we're still making ultimately higher lows on the RSI. And I'm pretty sure this is happening across the board. Nvidia not as nice, but Google's looking pretty good. Amazon, look at these bullish divergences setting up across the board, right? Pretty much, okay, maybe not Netflix, but you know, most of them are doing that pretty nicely. And of course, QQQ and SPY also making those bullish divergences, which is always a nice sight to see. So the market looks like it's close to bottoming, guys. I'm not gonna lie, it does feel like it's very, very close. I wouldn't say it's there just yet. Again, mainly because of the VIX. This needs to go well back below. Like if you go to the 1 hour, for instance, here, it's in this very large rising channel. And like I said, in an uptrend, what matters? Probably the bottom line. So in other words, the VIX needs to break below the bottom line of the trend line here, which will be essentially losing about 22.5 or so, for us to potentially have this thing finally stop, you know, trending upwards, I guess you can say, right? Which also lines up with an 8 EMA right here, you can see. So it's been supporting the VIX the whole ride back up, right? So it needs to lose the 8 EMA and pretty much 22 to 22.5. So those are the things you want to be looking at if you're a bull from the bullish perspective. There are good signs, there's potential, and there's, you know, it's looking like, you know, this could be it. But we need just a little bit more follow through and a little bit more confidence from those aspects, right? Now, Tesla on the weekly, let's take a look at Tesla on the weekly here really quickly, right? If we zoom out, check it out, right? It's pretty much, you know, and this is where I made this post, how I bought Tesla at 253 or more. I should more. I wish I waited this. I wish I was this patient. I actually was this patient on Nvidia. I pretty much bottom ticked Nvidia. I was patient almost the whole way down. I bought it here, sold it a little bit early here. I remember people laughed at me up here for selling down at 128 or something like that, 130. As where I sold, people at 140 were laughing at me, saying I just missed the train. And now I just pretty much re-entered almost at the bottom at 108. So I'm sure I'll be seeing them once again, once we're probably somewhere up there, and people will be once again saying I'm going to miss the train. But hey, we'll see how it goes. But nonetheless, yeah, so that's a good sign, right? I like that. You know, but the point is, I was very patient with Nvidia, and so far it's paying off pretty nicely. I wish I could say the same on Tesla, but the weekly chart on Tesla, regardless, you know, it's looking pretty decent, right? Why is it looking pretty decent? Because we're still in this overall, you know, very large and very aggressive sell-off that we just had, but nonetheless, we're still in this very, very large weekly rising channel. Now, this of course can go one of two ways. One way is, well, we just break down below it, which so far we haven't, but you know, we actually bounced pretty much exactly where we needed to. But as long as we continue holding this bottom channel, it's technically bullish. Like if I was someone that was just flicking through stocks, looking, you know, at the end of the week, what's looking like a good buy? You know, what's at major support levels? You know, what's, you know, I would look at Tesla here. And again, especially if I had no position right now, I would be extremely interested in Tesla at these levels, because you're getting a phenomenal risk versus reward. You're still buying at substantial demand, right? Pretty much almost to perfection. You know, look at this. Like, if you just take here, I'm gonna remove this for now. Like, just take a look at this. Like, look at where the wick is. Like, if you just take the wick and nothing else, which looks like something like this, right? This right here, something like that, right? And then something like the bottom of the wick too. Look at this. Like, tell me this isn't almost just, you couldn't ask for a cleaner wick off that demand zone, right? It's pretty much perfect. So again, you know, it looks good. Like, it does look pretty promising, to be completely honest with you. So let's see how it actually ends up playing out ultimately moving forward, however, but nonetheless looks pretty good. We're still at the bottom of this channel. We're still holding it. And technically speaking, I mean, this might sound crazy, but technically speaking, moving into, you know, well into like, you know, May or June or something like that. I mean, of course, this is, you know, it sounds impossible, but I'm sure if you told everyone back when Tesla was up here at 460 that it's going to come all the way down to 260, no one would have believed you. Everyone would have laughed at you, and everyone would have called you a clown, and they would have said that there is no way. And I promise you right now, if we went back in time and told everyone up here that this was going to happen, everyone would be telling you that they're probably going to sell their kidneys and take a mortgage or sell their homes and everything and go all in Tesla stock if it falls all the way from here to here. I promise you, everyone would say that if we went back in time. But now that we're here, how much you want to bet none of them are buying it? If anything, they're probably selling it, panic selling it, right? That's just how these things work. Price action changes a lot, and everyone was bullish up here, but now everyone's very bearish here. Now, granted, there's a risk. If we lose this, of course, this channel, then things get uglier, and we start going down to the next pivot point and fill this essentially small little fair value gap sitting right around here, around 220. That becomes the next target. If we essentially close below this week's low next week, let's just say 220s, yeah, it becomes a target. And unfortunately, Tesla really loses a potentially powerful uptrend here with this rising channel, and you know, we start potentially getting some actual, you know, could be some serious bearishness coming into the stock. But again, we're not there just yet. We could be, but we're not. And the stock is way too oversold, in my opinion, short term, that it's hard for me to believe that even if the scenario were to play out, even if we were to ultimately break down and southwards out of this channel and, you know, potentially get very bearish on the stock, I find it extremely difficult to believe that this will happen on this one instance of this kind of aggressive sell-off, because again, it's a very aggressive sell-off. RSI is, I mean, at this point, it's pretty much scraping the bottom of the barrel, right? It's at historic levels of oversold on the weekly. You have this bad boy here, essentially mean reversion, which is, you can see, pretty much, I think the second lowest it's ever been, which it is. The lowest it's ever been was when Elon was selling, and we were at $100 per share. It's now at the second lowest it has ever been, ever. So if you take the mean reversion, for instance, it would essentially be a reversion all the way back up here, closer to about the mid to low-ish, we'll say 300s. That's technically where the mean reversion lies. So let's see how that plays out in the coming weeks. I think it will, personally. I still think we'll see 325 personally. At least before potentially some, you know, things can happen. But yeah, let's see how that ultimately plays out. What else? We did make history today, I should add. We did absolutely make history today, where we had, here we go, bring this out, boom. This is the first time ever in the history of the stock that it has had 7 consecutive weekly closures, lower closures, I should say, in a row. Never has this ever happened. Even during the saga of Elon selling shares, this didn't happen. Even then, we had bounces. Even then, the bleeding stopped, and we had 1 or 2 or 3 even weeks of upwards pressure. This is the first time we have had 7 in a row of straight, raw, aggressive selling with very little room for bounce, essentially, if any. So on the bright side, we made history. So congratulations, guys. You have officially lived through Tesla stock history. You can look back on this day and tell your kids and children and everything like that, that, you know what, you were there, because you were. So anyways, that's kind of the basic look at Tesla stock. Again, as long as we essentially hold this level down here, right? Again, pretty much right around these levels here that we held this week, the low of this week, pretty much 250 and change, we'll say. As long as that holds, I think Tesla should, not necessarily next week, but probably sometime by the end of this month, have a bounce, at the very least, in my opinion, back to this zone up here at 310. But I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if we come up to about 325, which again, combine that with the daily channel, would bring it back up to the upper end of this channel, which also will be sitting somewhere around the 325 range. Bullish scenario, of course, would be if Tesla breaks out of this channel and makes its way up, at which point then the upper end of this extremely large weekly rising channel that we're in actually unironically becomes a potential what's it called, target ultimately, which again could take Tesla well into 500, potentially, you know, July or something like that. Again, it sounds insane, I know, it sounds like there's no way, no way, impossible, but again, that's what people said here about this. So you never know. You really never know in this kind of market, in this kangaroo market. You really just never know. But just strictly emotions aside, looking at the channel, It's kind of what it suggests. Now, one thing I like to do sometimes is this. This is the last thing I'll do before I end up the video. Is I like to sometimes inverse the chart. Sometimes if you inverse the chart, it kind of gives you a nice perspective. Actually, before I do that, I want to remove, hold on, this thing's annoying. Let me quickly go back to the 1 hour and let me quickly take these bad boys here and put them on current interval only so that it doesn't appear on the daily because it just looks very messy and annoying. Right? You can inverse the chart on TradingView like this, very simple. And sometimes it gives you a nice perspective. If you were to look at this chart, would you be bullish or bearish? Well, technically you would be bullish short term because you are in a rising channel, but you're also at the top of the rising channel. So this is where you might be thinking, maybe not so much, right? Maybe not so much. Or, same thing like this, right? Would you be bullish or bearish here? Well, you can argue that it's getting close to a breakout, but there's also a good chance that it just does what it did here, where it's actually rejected and went to the opposite side of the spectrum. So, we are in a pretty finicky spot. But another reason I wanted to bring this out, which kind of, is an interesting perspective, is if you take the Fibonacci from here, I mean, you can even just do this on the regular chart, honestly, it doesn't matter. Take the Fibonacci from this massive swing low we had all the way here that really started this move, arguably, to the swing high that we had up here, and we're pretty much sitting right in that discount range. Right, almost to perfection, sitting right inside this discount range between 272, 261 Fibonacci's. Again, if there's a spot for Tesla to bounce, this is it. Now, why is this level important and why does it work? Potentially, of course, never know. Well, we did make ultimately a higher high, right? The Tesla, it did on this overall swing high make a higher high. Which is why this works. The opposite was true for Nvidia. This is where people were just not believing the Fibonacci sometimes, where if you take this swing high from here to this swing low from here, and this time you do from up to down because it made a lower low, you go like this, and look at this. Look where Nvidia rejected, almost to perfection. Exact same spot Tesla's at right now, just flipped. So let's see. Again, we'll see. I think the potential is there. I really do. I think the potential is there. I still think it's there. I haven't given up hope. Let's just say that. But if there's a spot where the bulls really start stepping in, man, it's pretty much here, guys. We're pretty much there. Like this is it. Like this is the time. So if any bulls are still there waiting to buy, hey, please start. But anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on Monday. Peace.